McDonald's burgers have been around forever, and while Gen Z now orders through mobile apps, that wasn't the case in the 1980s. Back then, the entire cooking process had a charm of its own. So how exactly were McDonald's burgers made in the 80s? Stick around to the end to find out. Step 1. The frozen patties hit the grill. Now here's something you might not expect. Back in the 1980s, McDonald's didn't use fancy high-tech kitchen tools like they do now, but what they used worked like magic. Every single burger started with a frozen beef patty. Not fresh, not pre-cooked, just a solid puck of beef straight out of the freezer. And these weren't just tossed onto any old grill either, as McDonald's used big flat-top clamshell grills, and they were always set to the perfect temperature. That way, every patty cooked exactly the same, no matter what time of day it was or who was on shift. Once the frozen patty hit that hot grill, it started to sizzle right away. You'd hear the sound, smell the beef cooking, and suddenly the whole kitchen would smell like lunchtime heaven. About 20 seconds into cooking, the crew would grab a wide spatula and give the patty a firm press. Not too hard, not too soft, just enough pressure to smear it properly and give it that signature fast food crust. That quick press wasn't just for show. It actually helped keep the juices inside and gave the edges that slightly crispy bite you probably remember. Right after the press, the grill operator would sprinkle a measured mix of salt and pepper. But not just any mix. It was about 86% salt and 14% pepper. And yes, they had to get it right every single time. Too much seasoning, and it would overpower the burger. Too little, and the beef would taste bland. This whole thing took about a minute or so, depending on the grill type and what sandwich it was for. By the time the patty came off the grill, it was hot, juicy, and perfectly cooked. It went straight to the assembly station where the rest of the burger magic would happen. But none of that would matter if the beef wasn't done right. And in the 80s, McDonald's had that part down to a science. Everything started with that sizzle. And believe me, once you heard it, you knew something good was coming. Step 2. Toasting the buns. Now you may think the beef does all the heavy lifting in a burger, but let's be real. A burger is only as good as the bread holding it together. And in the 1980s, McDonald's didn't mess around when it came to their buns. Every single one got toasted to order. And we're not talking about dropping it in a regular toaster like you have at home. They used a special piece of equipment called a clamshell bun toaster. It was quick, hot, and got the job done every time. Here's how it worked. The buns came out of the bag soft and fluffy, already pre-sliced. Then, the bottom and top halves were loaded into the toaster with the inside part facing down. That way, only the inside got toasted while the outside stayed soft and pillowy. The bun toaster had hot metal plates that pressed gently on the bun surfaces and toasted them in just a few seconds. It wasn't long after all, maybe 5 to 8 seconds tops. But it was enough to give the bun a slight crunch and a warm, buttery feel when you bit into it. A little bit of toastiness actually made a big difference. First off, it helped with the texture. You'd get that nice bite from the bread without it going soggy from the sauces. Plus, it made the sandwich easier to hold and less likely to fall apart. And let's be honest, who doesn't love the smell of a warm toasted bun? To keep things consistent, McDonald's even had a rule for how long a bun could sit before it had to be retoasted or tossed. They didn't want customers biting into a cold, limp piece of bread. So the crew had to stay on their toes, making sure the buns were fresh and toasty right when the patties were done. Simply put, timing was everything. And here's a fun little detail. Sometimes if the grill guy was a bit ahead, the buns would be toasted just slightly longer to keep everything warm, while they waited for the meat. It was all about coordination. One person on the grill, one on the buns, and a couple more on assembly. It was like a dance. And if everyone hit their marks, you got that perfect golden brown bun every single time. They were toasted just right. Never too hard, never too soft. That's how they did it back then. Simple, fast, and honestly pretty genius when you think about it. Step 3. Assembling the burger. Alright, after the patty was cooked to perfection on that hot flat-top grill and the buns were toasted just right, it was time to put everything together. And trust me, back in the 80s, this step wasn't just about slapping things between two buns and calling it a day. There was a rhythm to it, almost like a fast food choreography that every McDonald's crew member had drilled into their muscle memory. First, The bottom bun was carefully pulled from the stack and laid down on a piece of burger wrap paper, usually sitting on a stainless steel work table. But this wrapping paper wasn't just for looks. It helped keep the burger warm, made it easy to hand off, and gave customers that satisfying crinkle sound when they opened it up. And honestly, that sound alone could make your mouth water. Then the hot patty fresh off the grill was dropped directly onto the bottom bun. You could actually hear a tiny sizzle when the meat hit the soft bread. Next came the condiments, and no, they didn't just squirt random amounts of ketchup and mustard. Everything was measured to perfection. There were these plastic dispensers with 2 long prongs, and they'd give 1 squirt of ketchup and 1 squirt of mustard in 2 perfect little loops. It wasn't just for neatness either. The exact portions made sure every burger tasted the same, whether you were in Florida or Idaho. Then came the pickles. 2 dill pickle chips were carefully placed on top of the patty, not 3, not 1, exactly 2. If you ever worked at McDonald's in the 80s, you probably remember the supervisor walking by and checking your burgers to make sure you didn't go rogue and toss in extra pickles. Now, here's where people usually get surprised. After the pickles came the onions, but these weren't sliced onions like you get in other places. Nope, they were dehydrated onions, rehydrated in water at the store every day. They were small, white, and they packed a punch. A small pinch was sprinkled right over the pickles to bring that bold flavor you always remembered. And finally, the top bun was placed on the whole thing like a crown. No flipping it upside down or pressing it down too hard. Just a gentle tap to make sure everything stayed in place. And just like that, the burger was ready to be wrapped. But even though it was all done super fast, the order and care that went into making each burger made it feel like a little masterpiece. And the best part? Every single location followed the same process. So whether you were grabbing a cheeseburger in California or a Big Mac in Ohio, you knew exactly what you were getting. Pure 1980s McDonald's magic. Step 4. Wrapping and holding. So the burger's being assembled. It's warm, it's stacked perfectly, and now it needs to be wrapped and sent out into the world. But hold on, before it landed in the customer's hands, it had to pass through one final stage, wrapping and holding. And this step, believe it or not, was just as important as cooking or assembling. First off, the wrapping process wasn't random. Crew members were trained to do it in a quick, smooth motion. The wrapping paper was already laid out, and once the burger was complete, you'd bring both ends of the paper over the top, tuck in the sides, and fold the bottom under. It wasn't just about keeping the burger warm. It also kept things from falling apart in your lap or all over the inside of your car. You may think it's just paper, but back in the day, they had different wrappers for each type of burger, all color-coded and labeled so the kitchen didn't mix anything up. Cheeseburgers had one wrapper, hamburgers had another, and Big Macs had a whole clamshell box. Now here's the part that made or broke the customer experience. The warming area. This was a section on the prep table with metal trays and heat lamps hanging above it. The wrapped burgers were slid into these trays where they sat under the warm glow of the lamps. But they weren't supposed to chill there forever. McDonald's had strict rules. No burger was allowed to sit there for more than 10 to 15 minutes max. If a burger stayed longer than that, it got tossed. That might sound wasteful, but it was all about keeping that fresh, hot, just-made taste. You'd often see crew members constantly checking the little time stickers or chalkboard notes next to the trays to see what needed to go. If a cheeseburger had been sitting too long, it went out. That's because they wanted the customer to bite into a warm, soft bun with a juicy patty that still had some grill heat left in it. Not a lukewarm sandwich that had been sitting under a lamp for half an hour. And believe it or not, speed was everything. The idea was to cook and build the burgers fast enough so they didn't even need to be held that long. If the kitchen was really humming, burgers were going straight from the table to the customer's tray in under a minute. That was the golden era of fast food right there. So yeah, wrapping and holding may sound boring, but in the 1980s McDonald's kitchen, it was a high-stakes balancing act. Wrap too slowly, and you hold up the line. Let the burger sit too long, and you ruined your customer's whole meal. But when you nailed it, man, that fresh hot burger hit different. Step 5. Serving the customer. Now this is where all the hard work hits the counter. After that burger was wrapped up all nice and snug in its paper jacket, it didn't just sit around. Nope. A crew member would scoop it up and send it straight to the front line, where another worker was already grabbing the fries and pouring the drink. In the 1980s, McDonald's wasn't playing around with slow service. Every part of the system was trimmed down to the second. You had stations, timers, call-outs, and this slick little flow where everything just worked like clockwork. The goal was to get the food to the customer in under a minute from the time they ordered. And I'm not even joking. Managers had stopwatches and they'd keep track. If things slowed down, you'd hear about it. But the cool part was, even with that speed, they didn't cut corners. The burger was still hot, the fries were still crisp, and the soda wasn't flat. Everything came together like a mini assembly line, but with a human touch. You'd walk up, hear your number, and boom, there it was. Hot, fast, and made with care. That old school McDonald's efficiency, honestly, it was kind of beautiful to watch in action. Now hit that like button in honor of McDonald's 1980s kitchen efficiency. And if you'd like to know how the world's most iconic brands were made in the old and modern eras, subscribe to the channel and we'll see you in the next one.